This episode of Shit Island contains 30% less sodium than the last episode, but retains its spicy flavor. How are you doing?
Well, I'm tired because I had a long day and an exam yesterday about academia, or the philosophy of science, or whatever. So, guess what we're going to be talking about today, folks? My exam, and how much I hated it, because I have to suffer and so will you. But now, the goat can talk first. How are you, goat?
I'm good. We're not going to be talking about your exam.
Not specifically.
We are going to be talking about academia, though.
And stuff that came up in my exam, so strap in, folks.
Strap in, indeed.
This is going to be an edgy episode.
Oh, yes, very edgy.
Yeah, as in we're all on the edge, am I right?
I am.
If you aren't going to college or haven't gone to college, maybe try the next episode.
Or don't. Get a taste for what it's like.
Yeah,
I guess.
See how the other side lives.
Jules, why don't you explain what exactly is it that we're talking about when we say academia?
Oh, and I'm fine, by the way.
That's good to hear, Peter. I'm glad you're fine. I have no idea. I guess whatever those people in universities get up to, and that can be very boring stuff, I've noticed. Well, what would you say academia is?
Long stretches of boredom intercepted with periods of enormous stress and anxiety.
Oh, that sounds about accurate, actually, yeah.
Just off the top of my head. But also just, a lot of reading, a lot of sitting around, discussing stuff, reading things. I don't know.
Doing research.
Yeah.
Being rewarded with fancy titles after years of work.
I am looking forward to that, yes. I'm going to be a doctor of city planning.
Doctor of city planning?
Yes,
damn.
I know, right?
Yeah. So when there's an emergency on a plane and someone asks you if they're a doctor on board, you can be like, yes, there is, in fact.
Does this man have a traffic congestion, you know? Is there some integration problem going on here, you know? Come on, what are we dealing with? Oh, heart problems? I have no idea. The man's going to die.
Is there a doctor in the house? And you're going to be like, not this type of doctor?
Both me and my fellow classmates feel kind of cheated because we are going to spend roughly 6 years at university, but we won't be getting any titles. We won't be doing a master's or a bachelor's or a doctorate, even though it's the same amount of time spent studying as a doctor would.
You're getting cheated.
You are getting cheated. You should sue them.
All we get is a teacher's license.
And no one's going to respect that.
Huh. I know in Denmark, if you study to be a teacher, it's a bachelor's degree, and then you can put, like, on top of that, you can study some master's stuff and a doctorate. So if you want to be like a school leader or like a counselor or something, you can do like the teacher study and then do a counselor master's or something, and then you can work as that at schools.
Yeah, I guess it would be interesting to tell the listeners what each of us is studying toward. So for those who don't know, I'm studying to become a high school teacher in social studies and history, and Jules is getting a doctorate in city planning, as she just said. Mm-hmm. And Peter, I have no idea what the fuck Peter does.
Peter does everything.
What do I do? Okay, I study
at uni.
What have I done? Oh God, I've studied. What haven't I done? I've studied law. I went to law school for a year and a half. Then I went to film school for a year and a half. Then I studied English, as in literature, and now I'm studying I'm studying philosophy, social sciences, history, and religion, and teaching as a minor. So philosophy is a major, and then the rest is minors, basically.
I'm up to 8 fingers now, so I'd say you're a Renaissance man, a bit of everything.
Yeah, sure. I've been very poor. I've been very poor this decade.
Student life, people. It's fun.
Yeah, definitely. But also, like on a personal note, if you're someone who's maybe dropped out of a study and like feel like you're a disappointment, or you feel like maybe like that wasn't right, then just know that you're one among many. Many people drop out of one education to do something else. It's very unfair if you're expected to know exactly what you want to do for the rest of your life when you're like 18. So don't feel bad if you choose something that you change your mind on and do something else, because it's entirely natural and it's more the norm now than the exception. So go you and do you.
Yeah, one of my fellow master students is a 30-year-old, so you got time.
Yeah, it's only going to be more normal in the future, I think. It's just important that you end up doing something you really want to do. So.
Indeed.
I wanted to be a surgeon, but I don't have any fine motor skills, so my fingers
Neither
just
do
kind
I.
of go all over the place, so I can't hold a scalpel.
I mostly also just wanted to be a surgeon for the money, and that's probably not a good motivation.
No, I don't think so.
Probably not a good idea to go into medicine for that purpose either, come to think of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you work basically 20 hours a day.
Yeah.
I also looked at, the student debts for those programs. They're a bit high.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not the best get-rich-quick scheme.
Yeah.
No. So, to get into the topic of academia properly.
Yes, I wanted to bring up something which has been annoying me for several years now, and that's the language used in academia. But to do that, I have to give a bit of background first why it annoys me a lot. First off, the academic language, if you've ever read some research papers or whatever, most of the time they will be written, almost all of the time in fact, they'll be written in third person. Unless it's very specifically about that individual's experiences, it's going to be written in third person.
Yeah, unless it's an experience that they're sharing with the paper or some testimony, it's going to be, third person, formal third person.
Unless it's very specifically about their own experiences, it's going to be third person, because it's it feels more objective than first person, which is why they use it. But here's where my problem comes in. So first, let's go back a few hundred years and delve a bit into the history of how science is done, because that's where my annoyance comes from. So we had this school of thought called positivism, and if you ask people what science is, they'll generally give the positivist view of science. That's your scientific method. There's a reality out there, and you can measure it, observe it, test it. You can have a hypothesis about it. You can see if the hypothesis is true or false, and that's how you do science.
Yeah, the view that the world is something which materially exists and which can be observed is empiricism. And empiricism is basically looking at the world and collecting data.
Yeah.
And then there are different methods to reach conclusions based on the data that you've collected with empiricism. And one of those methods is positivism, which is the classical, you come up with a hypothesis and then you test it to see if it's true. And if it is true, then you are correct. And the hypothesis has been proven true.
Indeed. And that's how most people view science, I think.
Yeah, also in philosophy called phenomenology, where you can observe and learn from experiences or phenomena, as they call it. Yeah.
Yeah, there are many different kinds of methods. There's the constructivism, as well as the critical rationalism, which comes from Karl Popper.
Yeah, I was about to bring him up actually, because he is the next step sort of in that development, where he's you can make these hypotheses, but you can very easily prove anything correct. The point is to prove things being incorrect. So you try to falsify these hypotheses, and while there's still this reality which can be measured, they can't really be. We can't fully measure it. We can only approach what the actual truth and reality is, and we do that by falsifying theories which aren't true. Because if something isn't true, then we don't know what is true yet, but we know it's not that, so we get a step closer.
Yeah.
So that's also a fairly big school of thought. They're also big on the objective third person thing.
Yeah, and also the realm of right, outside of the realm of phenomenology. So if it's outside of the realm of something that you can observe and report on, then it's subjectivism, and it's outside the realm of empiricism.
Yeah.
To put it in a very nerdily, academic gatekeepy kind of way, I guess. Outside of the field of phenomenology, folks. Have a good evening. Bye.
Strap in, folks. It's going to be a fun
Yeah.
episode, this one.
Yeah, but yeah. So basically, the thing is that every field of academics today, more or less, be it through tradition or just through some kind of positivist thinking, requires you to write in this formal third-person way.
Indeed. But then there's this other school of thought, which is fairly big. I mean, there are many more schools of thought, I should know that, but we're only going to talk about a few because this takes time and it's boring enough already. Let's not bury ourselves in different schools of thoughts. But another one, which is fairly opposite to the positivist view, is that no, there's not this one objective reality which we can measure. That doesn't exist. Instead, we have a reality which is socially constructed through our own experiences and our own senses. And that also means that the way we gather data, that is not objective. That is very much a subjective thing. And that also means that the research which comes out of that it's going to be biased. It's just a fact of basically being human. That what you produce is going to be biased. But now you can take this further, and some have done this in the postmodernist shenanigans. And the thing is, then the researcher, we can now really see the research as being this objective person, like in a lab, studying something. No, this objectivity isn't there, especially not if you're dealing with social sciences, because you don't have a lab thing. You don't have like just physics or anything. You have other human beings, and they will react to you, and you react to them, and that's going to influence how they behave and what kind of data you gather from them. So ultimately, what you're going to produce is going to be fairly influenced by just you being a human. But they still also use the third person objective narration thing, which I think is really fucking stupid. Because their whole point is that this objectivity in science isn't really there, and at least for social sciences can't really be there. But they're still using the language of this objective thing, whereas I think they should be using the first person to write, because that one implies a lot stronger that it's subjective. And I've been faulted for this by multiple teachers now, and it's really annoying because they have all been teaching me that, this is a social science, it's going to be influenced by you as a researcher, that's just, you being human, nothing to be done about it. We're not doing physics here, we're not measuring, how much weight a steel beam can carry. That's fine if you're being a positivist then, but it's not going to work if, you're going to analyze the personal experiences of like refugees from Syria settling in like rural Netherlands or whatever. It's not going to work there. But even then, in that research, third person, all third person has to be objective, has to look objective. It's not objective at all, but has to look objective. I don't know why. It's, I think, one of these traditions which hasn't really been examined, but I think it's very annoying.
I mean, it's pretty counterintuitive, I would say, to do it that way. I mean, it's kind of dishonest in a way, I suppose.
I'd say so, yeah.
It reminds me of something. I don't think I talked about this on the podcast. I think I just talked about it in a call with you two. But in Sweden, there is a debate about if teachers should be allowed to be political.
Ah, yes.
Because the general consensus is teachers should be objective, and they shouldn't let their own personal biases affect what they teach. And some people's response to this is, that's bullshit. No one can be 100% objective all the time. Teachers are human beings. They're going to be biased sometimes because they do have opinions on things. And one of the suggested methods of dealing with this is to have teachers basically not be objective. And you might say, what? That doesn't solve the problem at all. Well, the theory is that if teachers say up front, hey, class, I'm a communist, and this is what that means, and these are the areas in which I might be biased, then your students will know that you are biased, and they will keep that in mind as you talk about the subjects in which you are biased. And the alternative to this is that teachers never say what their bias is, but they are still biased in their teaching, but the student don't know that. And so the students just think the teacher's being objective and presenting truth, when in reality it's slightly bent truth.
So it's like if you've sexually molested someone and you have to go house to house in the neighborhood and saying that you've molested someone. You just said, hi, I'm a teacher, I'm a communist. Just warning you up front, I'm a commie.
It wasn't specifically about communists, but I just took that as an example.
Yeah, of course. No, I know what you mean. And it does make sense. I think that's, all joking aside, that's probably the best way to go about it. If you're really worried about that kind of progression in society where teachers, I think the whole argument is kind of bullshit. But if you're really worried about it, then that's probably the most realistic way you're going to combat political influence by the evil actors of teachers in society.
I think you should...
evil motives.
I think you should start teaching in third person to be more objective.
Yes. But I will say, like, one thing. I would say I'm sympathetic to what you're saying, Julia. I think the writing in third person can be like an old-fashioned, maybe traditional hang-around from a time where people saw reality as more of an objective thing. But I still think that the movements against positivism didn't rebel against like the form of academia, so they didn't rebel against the narration or the formality of the rapport and the assignments and books and research they did. It was more about the
actual underpinnings, I guess, of the
the philosophy of the research, if you will.
Yeah.
Like are we going to find the ultimate truth? And I'm personally, I like reading stuff, like official stuff that's written in third person, because if I don't know the person that's writing the assignment and it says, I have found this, or our group has found this, I will immediately grow suspicious and think like, who is this group? Like, this group is what? And if I read something that's in third person, where like the group found this and this, I will assume that they have some kind of authority in the university, or they've been in some way endorsed by a board, a peer-reviewed board that's going to look over their findings, even if they won't. But it's still something of like an innate trust thing for me. But that I could just be influenced by the fact that that's what I've grown up around, and that's what I've come to accept as valid, and the other as more invalid. I couldn't tell you, but that's just my opinion anyway.
Always just your opinion.
Always.
I also just kind of get the general feeling when I read an academic paper which is in first person that it's just like not proper.
Yeah.
It's just a feeling. But
yeah, I get that, but I feel that that school of thought at least should embrace it. That this is not the standard. And that's what I feel like about at least people in that school of thought, I think, should not be using third person, because it undermines their whole like philosophy, I feel like.
I disagree. I don't think the form itself has anything to do with the philosophy behind it. But still, when I read something that's first person, the first thing that jumps to mind for me is people saying, I think this, or I feel this.
Yeah, but that's the philosophy of that school of thought, that it is ultimately just the opinions of these biased researchers.
Well, I mean, yeah, but you're always
constructed opinions, yes, and they have valid reasons for believing this stuff, but still, it's not objective truth.
When you read a paper, though, this is but like when you read a paper, it has a problem statement. Like 99% of them do, and if you can read it and kind of agree with the base premise of that problem statement, then you're then you're on board for what they're saying. But you can find reports where they have a problem statement that's very skewed towards one direction, and you'll know already. I saw a problem statement once where they've done something like how do you get the lazy people on unemployment to be more engaged in society? And I was just immediately thinking, oh boy, yeah, okay.
Where's
So
this
this is
gonna
where
go?
we're starting. The lazy people on unemployment. Okay. Like you can kind of tell where they're coming from when they're doing the research from the problem statement, I think.
I feel like my professor would slap me if I used the word like lazy
Yeah.
in my problem
And
statement.
they should, but this was
mine
from,
too.
I think it was from England, that paper. So yeah, I don't know.
Was it written during the Thatcher era?
No, it was very recent. It was like 10 years ago, like
Yeah, jeez.
7 years ago. Yeah, it was very shocking. But it was one of those papers that they used in the newspapers, and they reported on it like new survey shows, and it was that survey, the one that was so
Oh, God.
like embarrassingly biased from the very beginning.
Fun.
Yeah. The more like academic writing that I read, and the more that I'm involved in like the academic world, the more I'm like, please don't read about science in the media.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very...
Science
Like,
says
never trust anything that newspapers say. Like, this is the latest in science. Like, no, it's not.
Whenever you hear anyone say science shows or science says, you just go like, which science? Like, show me right now.
One article in like the hypothetical worst case scenario or best case scenario said this, and that's it.
The Cato Institute said taxes are bad.
Like, it surprises me because, like, we talked earlier about positivism, and we kind of talked about it as it was like a thing that existed 100 years ago. There are still plenty of scientists that are positivists.
Oh, my God,
I mean,
yeah.
it came about at that time, is what I mean. Not that it was only present then. There's still plenty now.
It's still very popular, like positivism. In every field of academia, you still find positivists, like Jordan Peterson. He's definitely a positivist in the vein of Carl Jung, who was a student of Sigmund Freud. Like, he will tell you this stuff about lobsters, about how lobsters have arranged society, and then directly applied it to humans and go, this is the absolute truth because of lobsters. And that's like the ultimate positivist objective way of looking at it, and way of arguing that society is like non-changeable in its gender structure.
Yeah. It was the same for the theory about alphas and betas
Oh yeah.
in animals, like among wolves, because apparently that research was done on animals in captivity and also on chickens, and it was based on like pecking order, and like it was just like, yeah, this is how wolves are like, let's find evidence for that. Well, we can find it in dogs and chickens, so it's probably true for every animal on Earth, including humans.
That works. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's basically the motto of positivism. That works.
Yeah, no need to peer review this, guys. We figured it out.
That's enough research for
I
today.
can't wait for the angry positivists to email us now about how we're all wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be so like wonderful to be a positivist, though, because you could be so
it's
convinced
so
that
much
you had
easier,
the absolute truths to everything in the universe if you're a positivist. Like, there's no reason to. I remember like Wittgenstein, who's one of the most influential philosophers on communication. He was very adamant that like his books would be like the end of philosophy. And a lot of the great works of people going 400 years back in philosophy like would make it clear in statements that philosophy's done now because I wrote my book.
Solved philosophy. Done.
You can stop philosophy now. I have philosophied the
fixed
hell
it.
out of
I did
this,
it.
and
I
now we're
solved
done.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
solved
done.
it.
Yeah.
Let's get to work on something productive. Come on, people. I solved philosophy
Yeah,
for you.
like
Yeah, why are you still doing philosophy, Peter? Why are you still studying it?
I know.
Don't you know it's been solved? Are you going to solve it? And Peter,
haven't solved
are you
it yet.
going to solve it?
yeah, I'll get around to it. Like
Nice.
Wittgenstein wrote one book and then decided to be a carpenter because he figured he'd
Yeah,
finished
I'm
philosophy.
Done. Just done. what more is there to philosophize about? Philosophy has not had any new developments in the last 100 years, by the way, people. It's all been the same
Yeah,
last
no.
100 years.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Nietzsche felt the same thing. I don't know. It's just, yeah, you know.
I can imagine Socrates knowing the same.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call Wittgenstein a positivist, but
No,
like
no.
he still felt that like he'd found the ultimate truth and like this is the end of it.
Yeah, and then he wrote another book and thought, well, I was a fucking idiot back then.
Yeah, then he came back and wrote another book that was infinitely better than his first one.
Yeah, and which did actually solve philosophy.
Oh yeah, that's why it's over now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anyone is still unclear about what positivism is, just look on your mother's Facebook feed to see the news articles that she's shared on there. Like, a glass of red wine every day prevents liver cancer. Eating chocolate will prevent you from getting HIV.
Well, I don't have liver cancer, so guess it must be true.
That's positivism.
It is.
In a nutshell. It's mainstream news, sensationalized bullshit.
Or put in a different way, it's coming up with an idea and then thinking, okay, how do I prove that I'm right? As opposed to the other way of going, okay, I heard this. Is this true? And then doing research. So, well, the other thing that we wanted to talk about in academia is the academic gatekeeping that we feel, or at least have like observed in our time at university. Like in philosophy, they'll use a lot of words like epistemology. You hear about dialectics, which Hegel used, and Marx as well for us leftists, and ontology, basically describing all these things that aren't inherently understandable within the words themselves. Peter Coffin did a great video about it recently as well, where he talked about how there's a lot of gatekeeping from like the academic class to the working class. So a lot of the findings and the papers that come out and reports from universities don't really speak the same language that the working class or middle class even talk. They have their own kind of internal rapport. And I absolutely find that to be the case too. And I find too, I wrote something, I had a website for a short while where I wrote stuff, and I shared it with you, Azure, and you said you write like a Marxist. And I didn't even notice, but like, yeah, I also write in this very, I don't know, a complicated, unnecessarily complex way. And I think it's something that we have to be aware of. What do you think?
Yeah. If to be a bit meta here, the word for this kind of language is called a sociolect.
That is meta as fuck.
It's like a dialect, except used by a socioeconomic class or a profession, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, learn something new every day.
So now you have yet another word that you can use
gatekeep.
to gatekeep.
Yes, no peasants allowed. Yeah, actually, we had to write a research proposal the other week, and we actually got a lot of criticism on it because it was way too gatekeeping, really. So basically, if you hadn't followed this particular master's program, you probably wouldn't have much of a clue of what we were talking about. So it's we lost a few points on that, unfortunately. But yeah, it's a bit of a problem because we had to keep in mind that this is not just for our fellow classmates. Apparently, very annoying. So none of what we were talking about made any sense if you just picked it up as like an outsider to our class. Let alone if you're an outsider to like geography and like sociography, then you wouldn't understand any of it probably. But yeah, but even if you're in academia, like accessing other academic branches is also extremely difficult.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be able to read like a philosophy paper just that uses a language which I don't understand.
Yeah, and it is it's a whole process too. Like most fields of study have whole subjects and modules called methodology, or like the language of the field that you're studying, because there is so much inside baseball going on with the language that you use in your specific field. So it's and it's just something that's come over hundreds of years of people like feeling cool and coming up with words to describe stuff that aren't like in any way related to what they're talking about.
Yeah, I've had one such course every year now that I've been in university.
Yeah, I had 3 lectures last year. That was just about this is how you write academic papers for this
we had a
specific
full course on that. Wait, you just had like 3 lectures for that specific course on how to?
No, it was 3 different courses.
Oh, okay.
And each one had a lecture on these are the words that we want you to use, and this is the language that you should be using. And basically, if you don't gatekeep, then you'll be failed.
Indeed, yes, same.
So the professors really want you to use the words that they use. Even if you know the concepts and you can describe it using other words, they will fail you because you don't use the correct words.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So we need to be more careful, especially when we're propagating or agitating for our cause, that we don't use these obscenely difficult words and not explain them to people as we're using them, because people will find it annoying and we're talking down to them, whereas in reality we're just trying to explain what we believe. ContraPoints did a great video about it, where she acted like a left-winger on a stage propagating to others and just used all these very fancy philosophical terms, and no one listened to her, because it is just it does just become white noise when you talk too much inside baseball language to people who don't know anything about your field.
I do feel like that's basically what the debate between Cizek and Jordan Peterson is going to be.
Oh yeah, but they're going to be using very different, Peterson's going to be using a lot of Jungian terminology, like archetypes and enema and animus, and Zizek is going to be talking about Hegelian. It's going to be a mess and a clusterfuck, and I can't wait.
I'm amazed that you can even understand anything Zizek talks about.
Talking
about academic gatekeeping, that guy's the fucking king.
You know how, I see Zizek, do you know the Silmarillion, that book that Tolkien wrote after Lord of the Rings? Yeah, so imagine it like this. Zizek is like the Silmarillion in the sense that you have to have read or know of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings before you read the Silmarillion, because the Silmarillion explains stuff surrounding those books. And if you haven't read those books, then the Silmarillion isn't going to make any sense to you. And that's Zizek, basically. He, you have to have read or known of, I want to say 20 or 30 philosophers.
All the philosophy. You need to have solved philosophy, basically.
you need to have, you need to be aware of all these people, because sometimes he'll say a little sentence and I'll kind of know what he's talking about, but at the same time it's so obscure, and he'll laugh and find it really funny, and everyone in the audience will just look at him, but then I'll be like, yeah, I gotcha. But it's like he's just
let me just Google this concept first. Oh, that was actually a funny joke.
Yeah, you could just be like, oh, Heidegger's design. I get it. But
good old
it's
Heidegger.
So obscure. Oh my god, yeah. Anyway. But that's Zizek. He is the Silmarillion of philosophy. He just came out of a library reading every book.
No, he's not the gatekeeper. He's just a gate.
He is. And he's not prepared to talk to as wide of an audience as he's currently talking to. He's really not.
I'm amazed he has that audience at all, given him.
Yeah, and he's kind of the only public intellectual on the left right now, when you think about it. That's crossover appealed his way into Peterson fame.
Which is
it's very interesting. It is very baffling, especially considering the way he talks.
Me, but yes.
I think it's those movies he's done for a long time now. With, who was it, Sofia Coppola? No, not Sofia Coppola. I can't remember who, but The Pervert's Guide to Ideology and Cinema. Yeah. Very good movies, by the way. Highly recommended.
I never saw them. And funnily enough, Cizek never saw them either.
Oh yeah, he hates looking at himself. He's incredible. That guy, I mean...
Fair enough. It's not like we listen back to these episodes either, no. Well, you do, guys. You have to edit this.
Yeah.
Hello, future guys.
Yeah. No, but I love those... interviews where he's talking about the movies, and he's like, I hate it. She made me talk about this thing while I was pretending to be Raging Bull, and I didn't want to talk about it, but she said we're not going to make it if we don't talk about it, so I talked about it. It's just, I love you, Zizek.
Poor Zizek.
Oh, yeah. Okay, transition.
Moving on.
This episode of Shit Island is also brought to you by Joshua Cheeseman, our first Tier 2 patron. Made with 100% organic cheese and gluten-free men. Thank you, Joshua.
Good on you. Cheers.
That's great. So if you want to become our patron, you can do so at patreon.com/azure scapegoat. I'm Sean Connery now.
Join now.
Azure scapegoat. If you want to become our patron, you can do so at patreon.com/azure scapegoat.
Consume us now.
Consume us now. Support this cultural Marxism. Do your duty and consume.
Yes,
Yeah.
consume.
Yeah.
And if you're wondering, hey, why on earth would I give money to these fucking people? What are they gonna do with
What
it?
else are you going to do with that money? Come on.
Yeah.
Do you have a podcast? Are you making a podcast? Are you entertaining? How many people are watching this, actually?
I don't know.
Probably like 100 people at least.
Couple thousand. Very
Oh, well,
surprising.
shit. Hey, are you entertaining
1,000.
1,000 people? Come on, give us your money.
Our first episode got 3,000 something
Oh,
listeners.
sweet. Maybe Skillshare will start sponsoring us. Or that other thing. What's the one with
Maybe,
the website?
maybe one day we will get a real sponsor.
Stamps.com.
Yes.
fucking hate the post office?
I do hate the post office. Go to stamps.com instead. Don't go to stamps.com. Go to the post office, you fucking wanker.
You know what Dan Harmon did, which I thought was really funny on his podcast Harmontown, was he wanted Nike to sponsor his podcast, so he started advertising Adidas. It's like, he's like, I'm going to advertise Adidas every week, and I'm going to talk about all their products until you sponsor me, Nike.
That's great. We should
I
do
thought that was wonderful.
That is interesting.
Anyway.
So people email us sometimes.
Somehow, for some reason.
You can do so at shitislandshow@gmail.com if you have anything that you want to tell us. And I'm just going to read you some of the various comments that I found funny or interesting. Here's one. And I'm just going to read this word for word. And I'm not going to do any changes to it. I'm just going to read it as it is written. So
You're
prepare
really
yourself.
building it up now. I'm excited.
Socialism is perceived as a ideology while capitalism don't. During the Cold War or any other moment, there was a symbol by the capitalist, such as the socialist? How capitalism does not be perceived as a ideology? How people in socialists' society see capitalism? Your channel bring me so much knowledge.
Cool.
I feel bad about laughing at that.
I'm laughing like, how can you get knowledge from this fucking podcast? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
We try our best,
Yeah,
but
sort
yeah.
of.
So I think the question is
Okay, why isn't capitalism seen as an ideology?
yes, and also how do socialists view so people living in socialist society view capitalism?
Well, going by what I've seen from like a couple of stars I talked to, not too great. Given the whole, shenanigans with the Soviet Union collapsing and all the introduction of the free market and the life expectancy like dropping 20 years, whatever it is.
That's true.
Well, like if you want to be philosophical about it, like we just talked about Zizek, and he has the whole pervert's guide to ideology thing, which is really good. He talks about the way that ideology today and since the end of the Cold War has been entirely invisible. So like now, with the end of history, Mark Fisher's written about it too. We don't have propaganda the same way that we used to. Now, every ideological thing that's going on in society is entirely invisible, and it's only presented to us through the things that are sold to us and the things that are provided to us as citizens in a society. You see this in a great example of it is the movie we keep referencing is They Live, where he puts on the glasses and sees what these things in society that are advertised to him really symbolize. So like a journey or a vacation to somewhere isn't really about being like going on a vacation. It's about consuming and spending money and contributing to consumption and to.
As a tourist geographer, I can very much confirm that. That is exactly what it is. I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
That is exactly what it is.
Yeah. I kind of lost the thread there, but I think, yeah.
Good movie.
I think
Go
that's-
watch.
yeah.
Go watch They Live. Apparently, it's good.
They Live is good. Capitalist Realism by Mark Fisher is a wonderful book. I still hold it's one of the best philosophical books in the last 2-3 decades. It's really, really good. Support Mark Fisher. He passed away a few years ago. It's very short. It's very handy. It's easy to read. It's not that long. It's really, really good. Yeah. Capitalist Realism by Mark Fisher. It's about this exact topic, about how capitalism is seemingly just reality in the way that it's presented, and socialism is something nefarious or something different that is dangerous.
Yeah, just to add to that, as a cultural geographer, just dropping all my credentials here. I think part of the reason why there isn't this symbolism and propaganda for capitalism is, well, to borrow Thatcher's phrase, there is no alternative anymore.
Yes.
So there's not really a need to make propaganda for this thing if this is the only thing that's there.
Yeah, the only game in town.
That might change with, there's a rising left, there's also a rising far right, but if they become, more viable alternatives, then maybe we will see a return of this capitalist symbolism.
Yeah, that would be interesting, and that's why Zizek said to vote for Donald Trump too. Is maybe it would be the end of these terrible right-wing centrists, and he was kind of right in a way, I think.
I disagree, but we can talk about it in a future episode because I think we're drifting away now from the topics.
We are. Okay, this week I'd like to do the Humanity is Good corner. So instead of Azure's Humanity is Good corner, it's going to be Peter's Humanity is Good corner, because why not? I'd like to talk about a Venezuelan doctor called Jacinto Convit. I'm sure I got his name wrong, but he was a very influential doctor who, when he was very young, was inspired to become a doctor because he saw how many people had leprosy and how they would be so stigmatized against that they would, instead of seeking treatment and kind of locking themselves in an asylum and helping to find a cure, they would run away into the woods and live alone until they died horribly and alone. So he decided as a young man to become a doctor and help fight leprosy. And when he did become a doctor, he helped do a lot of the research that eventually led to the vaccine against leprosy and the bacteria that leads to leprosy. And he decided, again, not to, like Salk, not to patent it and to give it away for free to people. So the leprosy vaccine is like the polio vaccine, free of charge, or at least free of patent. So it's very relatively, at least, cheap for people. And instead of patenting it and making a lot of money, he decided to give it away and then stay in the medical field and help work on some kind of cure for cancer. And he kept working on this research until he turned 100 years old, and unfortunately died before they found a cure, but did help with some pretty major breakthroughs in his lifetime. And he was nominated by the Venezuelan government for a what's that called? Like not a Pulitzer Prize? What's the other one? Nobel Prize, Nobel Peace Prize, or Medical Scientific Prize.
It's Nobel Prize of Medicine.
Yes, that one. But he didn't receive it because someone else made a huge breakthrough at the time. But he is someone, I think, that proves that there are good people around, people who are helping and sacrificing a lot to help people who very much are in need of help in very serious conditions. And he is a man who is responsible for hundreds of thousands of people being alive today and their children being alive today through his, I would say, entirely selfless work in the field of leprosy and cancer. So thank you, Jacinto Convit, for your hard work, and I think we should all remember him.
That's a very nice story. I'd just like to point out that communism couldn't work because human nature is to be greedy.
True. Yeah, I think if there's anything we can learn from Convit, it's humans are greedy.
Yeah.
Exactly. But if you want to prove that theory wrong, feel free to donate to our Patreon.
That's a great commercial for us right there.
I know, right?
Yeah, if
we
you
think
want
you're too
to
greedy.
prove that communism can work, give us money.
Yeah, Yes, you're a communist, aren't you? Come on, give us your money. Consume.
Yeah. And also, if you're a capitalist and you want to prove that capitalism can work, then pay us money on our Patreon, and we will provide you with a service, which is a weekly podcast.
Yeah.
So, in a way, we are both the capitalists and the communists can unite on this one common principle, which is supporting the Shit Island podcast.
Yep. I guess the anarchists won't because, I don't know, I guess Patreon's still bad. So.
If you're an anarchist, go...
send us all the currency you don't use. How about that?
Go to your local anarchist book cafe.
Send us a copy of, like, Bookchin or the Bread Book or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Send us a long, rambly email about how syndicates work, because I will never figure out how they work.
Look, Peter, it's simple.
Tell me that one too.
You take a union, you turn it into something that's not a union, and that's a syndicate.
Yeah, and apparently I'm a syndicate, and apparently I need my own syndicate police force. I don't
Are we
get
going
it,
to get
but,
a syndicate
you know.
on Shit Island? I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with like the other people on this island's unionizing. I mean, syndicatizing.
We need a union for Shit Island podcast hosts.
Yeah, I'm fully
That's
ready
fair
to accept
point.
that I'm just an idiot for not understanding how syndicates work, but I certainly don't understand them.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of things on the left, not to be that person, but it's just a
Not be
very
that
basic
person.
concept, but it's given a new word.
Yeah.
Like we don't have police, but people's militias.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, gatekeeping.
It's like gatekeeping.
Exactly.
I mean, it's less gatekeeping, it's more factionalism. Like, we're not like those guys. We're not like capitalists. We don't have police. We have voluntary brigades of working men who protect
Exactly.
the citizens of the commune.
It's way
Yeah.
better than the police.
Yeah, it's completely different. They just happen to have guns and
And enforce
enforce the laws.
codes of behavior.
Right, yes, the universally agreed upon codes of conduct
Exactly.
that are decided upon by a rational consensus, not democracy or voting. A rational consensus by the majority of the people in the commune, not the state, the commune.
This sounds very rational to me, and I'm on board.
Very.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for explaining syndicates to us.
Yeah, it sounds very edgy and definitely not like what we've got going on right now in society.
Are there any other ideologies we can piss off while we're working at it?
No.
Ah, jeez.
We love you, anarchists. Please don't cancel my Twitter profile. Anyway, maybe we should end it on that report.
Maybe we should all just end it.
Maybe we should.
Yeah.
This should be the end. Here's to you, Nicola and Bard. What's going on? Like, we're making this episode shorter, guys. We're doing it.
No,
We're doing it.
I was just looking up the lyrics to the end from The Doors, you know.
Oh,
That's one. This is the end, beautiful friend.
uh,
Uh,
my only friend, the end.
Are we still doing the podcast, or is this